Welcome to Beyond the Veil, stories of twin flames, divine union, and mystical encounters. Sit back, relax, and listen to your story today. Our next guest is Isabel Mize. She is a psychotherapist and energy healer based in Marin County in Northern California. And she is going to tell us all about her twin flame journey, and they are together, so stay tuned. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good to see you. You did the dream class, right?
I did.
Yeah, I was like, that
Good
name is
memory.
so familiar.
That
So
class was
good.
amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy you're doing this. Like, so exciting.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. It's a gift.
Amazing. Yeah, so just go ahead and launch into your story.
All right. So my twin flame story. It's so fun to be able to share it because I feel like I've been closeted and I'm coming out of the closet finally because it's such a wild ride. But how it started was in 2018. I was 38 years old, and I went to a place that's pretty famous and well known in Sausalito called the Record Plant. It's where a lot of really cool albums were recorded. And one of my favorite artists was Prince, the musician. And they had a honoring of his first album, which he recorded there called For You. I don't know if you're familiar with that album, but they had this really cool party there. And I was the biggest fan at the time, married, two kids, what I thought was just, a normal night turned into a complete catalyst for blowing up everything I thought I knew and who I thought I was. So I end up going to this party. I'm waiting for my sister. She's supposed to meet me there per usual. She's always late, but looks absolutely fabulous when she arrives. And it was a theme. So we're all dressed in 70s gear. And most of the demographic of people that were there, were within our age range. Now I'm 40, almost 44. At the time I was 38. And everyone was between, I'd say, the ages of 35 and 55. Prince fans, like we grew up with him. It was our generation. So all of a sudden, I'm waiting for my sister, and someone comes up to me and he says, "Hey, would you like to dance?" And my very first reaction was, "How old are you and how did you get in here?" Like it was just a very programmed response of, "How old are you? How did you get in here? And why are you asking me to dance?" And it was almost really off-putting at first. Energetically, I was completely baffled. And I said, I don't, my sister's on her way. And he's like, "Well, you can dance while you wait for her." And so I went ahead and started dancing. And this person that I ended up meeting, who is my twin flame, I didn't know at the time, had no idea what just came into my life, is a musician. And probably, let's see, he's 17 years younger than me. And one thing that is really kind of cosmic about the whole thing is when I was young, all I wanted to do was be a dancer, and that was like my passion. And so to have the intro be, would you like to dance, is very, I think, deep. And now that I look back, it's just that first question. And then what proceeded to happen was, all of a sudden, it's almost like time stopped and everything got really slow. Like it was like slow motion. And I was really confused as to what was happening. And at that point, I wasn't in the world of energy. I didn't understand I didn't know what any of this language was, but something was really different for the first time in my life. And I felt like everything was really slow and slow motion. And I don't drink, I wasn't on drugs. I mean, but something was happening. And it was as if it was, it was as if I was getting some kind of download, and I felt my chakras completely light up, but past the seventh, into the eighth, into the ninth, and up higher. And I had never experienced that before. And it really freaked me out. And I didn't understand what was going on. So, and again, I was married, 2 kids. Was I happily married? No. Was I going through the motions of life? Yes. And then I ended up leaving, but right before I left, this young man who asked me to dance asked for my phone number. And at the time, I was like, what's the harm? Like, fine. So I gave him my number. He got my sister's number, and it was all fine. Okay. I get home, and the very next day is when the Kundalini awakening just went crazy, and I didn't know what was happening. I woke up and I was having really intense dreams. I was in blissed out states. I dropped, and this is the comedy of the universe, in the trickster nature of the cosmos, is I couldn't eat because my life force energy was just so rampant. And I dropped down to 111 pounds, 111 pounds, for about a month straight, which I was in this like really crazy blissed out state, I'd say, for a month. And I couldn't eat, and I would weigh myself every day. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. It cannot be 111 again. It cannot be 111 again. And so the repeated numbers started to show up everywhere. And then things got really intensified in that this young person texted me. I said, I'm married, I have 2 kids, thank you very much, go away. But energetically, we were already remembering. But I didn't understand that at the time. And so I was resisting what was happening in a really deep way. However, when the universe calls, it calls, and it calls really deeply. And yes, you can say no, but at the time I felt like it was either soul loss or stepping into this journey. And the very next few days, there were all these synchronicities. This person, my twin flames, name would show up in my kids' story that I would read at night. Then I would have these dreams where we would meet in the astral, and there was all this download happening in terms of like an ancient life in Egypt and all this. And I didn't know who to talk to. I had no one to talk to. I felt insane. I was so afraid to share anything with anyone because no one seemed to be having this experience around me. And I had these 2 little kids. My youngest was 2 at the time, and my older one was 5. So fast forward, through the, intensification of Kundalini, and really what felt like a purge, I'd say a 2-year purge of, and it continues, but I'd say the intensified process of that was 2 years. And it wasn't fully integrated. It wasn't mellow. It was quite violent. I would get really sick. I would have panic attacks. I get these ocular migraines. And then I started hearing from the other side really clearly. This is what you're going to do. This is the next step. And then it went from that to, it was almost like my twin flame and I shared a stream of consciousness, and how and when we connected, if it was aligned with divine vibration and energy, then really cool things would happen within my own system and network of people around me. If I was not aligned and I was in a state of fear or in a state of panic, all hell broke loose within my own dynamic. And it was so trippy, and I could see it all, and I could see the interconnectedness of all things. Like I could be in a grocery store, and the song that was playing, and the teller and the bag, and I knew exactly what our whole stream of consciousness was doing at that time. It almost felt like I was on a really intense drug trip, amplified by 100. And I felt like, do I need to check myself in somewhere? Am I going crazy? And is this just a midlife crisis? What is happening? So then, and this story could go on, but then what happened was I ended up telling my husband at the time that I needed to leave. And And that whole journey happened, and it happened because it was such a strong call, and it was as if it's almost like if I didn't leave, I would have gotten really sick somehow, whether it be a physical ailment, a psychological ailment, a spiritual sickness, however you want to name it. But it was for the highest good of all people involved that I needed to leave. And so I found a small apartment in Fairfax, where I live now, and I made the decision to leave, and everything was synchronistic up until that point. The woman who owned the building, the time I pulled up was at 111. My number 3 is like the biggest symbol for me. The number 3 has always been my number. So, and then the unit's number 3, like everything just lined up. It was easy. It was like the universe was like, boop, 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 and everything just kind of opened up. And everyone around me thought I was insane. What are you doing? How can you leave your marriage? You have these 2 young kids. How are you going to do this? And at the time, I really felt like I needed to shut a lot of energy out in order to be in my experience of unearthing whatever it is that needed to come up. And it was a really big process. And it was for me, it wasn't this blissed out state that I had the first month. It was like a really dark journey, and it was terrifying. And it made me, meet a lot of ancestral patterns and programming and patterns of codependency, really, on a deeper level, and kind of welcome this indigenous blood that I have. I'm Colombian, and our family comes from this tribe in the Andes Mountains, and it was something I had fully just like suppressed. And it was just here in like the biggest way. And the only way I could activate the magic was through the union with this energy, and this energy that stepped forward with this divine counterpart that came into my life. And let me tell you, if I were to write the story, I would not have ever written this way, nor would my programmed 3rd dimensional self be like, this is a great ideal situation. This is great. Sign me up. I love this. It was like my biggest nightmare, and at the time, it was really clear that my journey could not go on without this deep template that was brought into my life. And what I mean by that is it was an opportunity to awaken. It was an opportunity it was almost like an acceleration of evolution on steroids. And it was fast. And so I move into this apartment with my 2 small kids, a dead raccoon as I enter, like the whole thing, all the symbolisms are there. And I start channeling in a way that was super unhinged because I was ungrounded, didn't have tools, and didn't know what was happening. So I would be in contact with someone, and I would just be channeling their stream of consciousness and not realize that I'm merging with their energy. I had no concept because the interconnectedness was so merged. It was hard for me to figure out what was what. And then with my twin flame, that relationship continued, and it deepened, and there were so many tests. There were test after test after test. And I remember in the beginning just how afraid I was of saying yes to this connection. And here's this person at the time. So he was 20, I was 38, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But as souls, we could not have been more, we are such a vibrational match. And it was just, and what's interesting is I think he really embodies the divine feminine, and I think I embody the divine masculine, and which is fascinating. And then it sent me on this journey to try to understand what the hell was happening, because there was this magnetic force pulling us together, and then you merge, and then there's the sexual component too. There's this really intense, I had, intense past life experiences through the sexual merging of our energy. and then shared dreams, telepathy. And this is stuff that I can't just go and tell my mom and dad or my sister. Like at the time, I was just closeted because I was terrified. So then that brought me on a journey of trying to understand what was happening. And spirit at the time was talking so intensely. And it went to, okay, this is the apartment you're gonna get. This is who you're gonna contact. It was so clear. It was like I was just fully in this plugged in frequency. And then there was a house that came on the market and it was up the road. And they're like, you're going to put an offer. This is what you're going to do. This is who you're going to work with. And I just followed. I said yes to all of it. And I just followed the messages. And then I ended up with this home. And then we created this home together, me and my children. And we renovated it. And all the players came in like via a grasshopper symbolism that I couldn't tell people because they'd be like, you're insane. But a grasshopper was on my car. And it followed me for a day. And then this contractor showed up with a grasshopper tattoo on his hand. And I'm like, that's the guy who's going to work on my house. Like, but I can't say these things out loud, right? Because it sounds insane for a lot of people. I think now things are evolving and people are getting there. But at the time, it felt like I was really alone in it. And so then I started researching, like, what is this? Why do I have to leave? It felt like the waves of Kundalini bliss that came through. I would have to leave work to deal with the energy, and it would be like spontaneous, orgasms, like just like these really big energies moving through. And that had never happened to me in my life and terrified me. And I would be in the middle of like having a client and as a psychotherapist at the time, like sweating and just like trying to move the energy down and then having to leave to go, just like allow for the explosion, come back. And it would happen like that for, I'd say the first 2 years was really intense. Now it's totally integrated. It's not on steroids anymore. But at the time it was that intense. And then it led me on a quest to understand what on earth was happening because I had never heard twin flames. I've never heard of Kundalini. I didn't understand the energetics behind what I was experiencing, but I was able to see and feel the interconnectedness. It was almost like I could see higher self perspective, multidimensional places that also I had like crazy connection to Arcturian energy. And like, I was like, what are all these downloads? And they were all happening at the same time. And I couldn't decipher and I didn't understand. So I started writing things down in a journal because I wanted to understand. And I started doing research. And that's when I came across Mel, the Gold Ray Twin Flames. And I started watching all his stuff. And I finally felt seen. I finally felt heard. I finally felt like I'm like, this is exactly what is happening to me. And that's when I discovered, okay, this person that came into my life that completely blew my life up, completely. I don't even recognize the person I was prior to meeting him. It's like that was a complete false mask I was wearing. And anything that was not true, anything that was not aligned with authenticity got burned so violently during that time. And fast forward to there is no option but to align with this energy because any other way makes me sick physically, even just the way I ate, everything. I can't even touch. Even now I get so frustrated. I like try to have, I don't know, some half of a cookie. And I'm like, really? Like it's almost like this vibration that you're constantly like everything caters around this vibration. So fast forward, I started doing research, realized this is my twin flame. I'm 17 years older. So in third dimensional reality, it is a very interesting thing to navigate when people run into us. Are you his sister? I even had, are you his mom, which was horrifying. But also, what a great opportunity to kind of take the way we're programmed and flip it upside down. Right? To take the way in which we have been conditioned to see ourselves, to make decisions in our own lives, not realizing we're not fully sovereign, right? And I use it as an opportunity now to allow to plant seeds that, hey, you know, we're not our age, we are our energy. Think about that for a little bit. How does that land? Or, you know, being really clear on your authentic nature and the love, it's source energy. It's fully, you're channeling source energy through the connection. So there is no other way but to honor this journey. And however, along the way, you're going to have, I mean, for me, I don't want to talk for anyone else, but along the way, you will experience really huge moments of reckoning in your life. And you're going to be up against what you thought you knew and totally stepping into the unknown and allowing. That's my mantra for everything. Just allow for the energy, and then to feel what it's like when you are not in union, and to experience how dark and how disconnected you can feel from your own original essence as well in those moments. But there's a huge process in allowing, because with all that fear comes the birthing of more courage, right? The birthing of more power, the birthing of more, I think, authenticity and real union with gifts. And that was the next thing, is all these gifts started coming online. You know, during some of those purging sessions where when you're brought to your knees, and I gave birth naturally the second time, no drugs. And I don't think I've ever felt suffering or pain the way I have in some of the energetic purging sessions I've had, where I really met pain and suffering in a deep way. And in those moments, right, where you meet yourself there and you honor that part too, you honor the ancestors, you honor the darkness, you honor the trauma, you honor what's happening, is when I really started to wake up to these gifts, right? And the gifts were, oh, I'm going through this because part of this process is I'm going to help other people who are going through this. And in order for me to do that, I have to, you can only take people as far as you've taken yourself, you know, and this was part of my journey. It was like an initiation, really. And then I went into getting my master's in intuitive energy medicine and really understanding energy in a deeper way, and understanding how to manage and harness the large circuitry that sometimes comes. And I didn't have those skills before. It was like unhinged, like a raw wire running around and like blowing up toasters and flat tires and like I was so unhinged and ungrounded because I didn't understand what was happening, right? So then the gifts come online. And I think, you know, one of the gifts being that I've, you know, always been deeply musical, but I never really explored that, given we all have different life circumstances. And I was very much in survival mode, you know, coming from an immigrant, my mom's an immigrant and all the things, like it's a whole life journey. But my twin flame is a musician who writes music. And then it turns out, oh, I write music and I didn't even know that I could do that. And I'm writing the lyrics to his songs, and we're creating together. And now we're going to create a sound healing album. And now we're doing all this creation together. And the creation gets amplified by our connection. And I think it's a pretty cool thing to watch and sit back and see how we're like transmitters and receivers, you know, and together there's this other energy that's created. It's almost like you come together and you can birth galaxies together. You can birth planets together. And I think until I had this experience, I would have never believed in a million years that this was something that happens in third dimensional reality. And it's very much, I mean, we meet in the fifth, the sixth, we're there together, but we're also creating a new way of being in connection here on Earth. And in that, we've had to overcome a lot of programming, a lot of conditioning, a lot of our own hangups, I guess, for me, more for me. I feel like he was like the more, I would say he was more evolved of the two. You know, they say there's a runner and a chaser, and I'm definitely probably the runner. Although I don't know if I even subscribe to all that, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of energetically, I was like, maybe the space I always wanted to create. I was like, this is a lot. This is, you know, give me a second. And I think it's because I just had more karmic stuff. I had the kids, I had a marriage, I had to like go through that whole thing. I had this whole family, a really traditional Latina mom, like the whole thing. So I just had more stuff to navigate.
Yeah.
But I mean, the story can go on and on. There's so many crazy things within it. I wanted to give you just kind of a high level, quick run through of my experience. There's so much more, but that's kind of just the gist of how it all happened.
I adore that. And I really love that Prince brought you guys together.
He totally is part of this, by the way. Oh, yes. Ian, when we met up, like for the third time, we were both wearing the same Prince shirt, unplanned.
Oh my God.
And we were like, you got to be kidding.
That's wild. I've had a mystical experience with Prince on the other side with my twin. And so he's definitely a twin guide. And
absolutely,
it's what I call the harmonic universe. And he's navigating things up there. And he's come to me in a couple medicine journeys. And so I adore that so much. And I really loved the way you said, when you're in alignment and when you guys are together in a high vibration, things go so magically and effortlessly.
Yes.
But when you drop down to the fear, all hell breaks loose.
It does.
It was a really great way to put it, because it's so true. It's what happens when we went all in fear. Chaos just ensued everywhere, you know. That's wild. And the Kundalini experience is something you cannot explain to other people.
No.
It's like this. And when you said like flat tires and all that, and I was like, oh, I remember that. I was in college.
Yes.
And
yes.
I walked into the photography lab and all the computers went.
Yep.
I was like, sorry.
Exactly.
Before you learn to harness the energy and before you bring it in. So I love that. Are you still in contact with the Arcturians?
So at times, yes, I can feel them, especially when I'm doing energy healing and working on clearing entities or darker vibrations out. They tend to appear sometimes.
I love the Arcturians so much.
Okay, you're familiar. Yeah, I was like, what is this? What is happening?
Yeah, I've had experiences with the Pleiadians, Arcturians, and the Sirians, but the Pleiadians were the first ones when I was going through it that came in, and I was like, who are you?
Yes. Like, what's happening? And yes.
Totally. Like the what? The Pleiadians?
Yes.
Yeah. That's so magical. So when you were going through all this, were you in contact with your twin the whole time?
Off and on, yes. And he was going through his own intense stuff with family.
That was my next question.
Yeah. I mean, he was in his own journey of purging a lot of his own childhood trauma and stuff and ancestral trauma. And we're both biracial. And we both have like kind of similar family structures. And it's so interesting. I can't even write this. And we look like each other. A couple times people thought we were twins. And they're like, are you twins? Brother, sister. Anyway.
It's cool too. I think, do you subscribe to the one soul, two body idea?
There is a part of me that does feel like, yes, there's a part of me that does. I mean, I know a lot of people might argue against that, and I've had a lot of people be like, that's impossible, blah, blah, blah. But I really do feel like it's another part of myself, and vice versa. Like, we're just mirrors, and we share the same soul and almost like stream of consciousness, because the craziest stuff still happens. It's not just in that 2-year heightened state. Like just the other day, it was so weird. He was at dinner with his family doing something, and I fully got a download of what they were talking about. And then I was talking to a friend and told her, like, oh my gosh, I think they're talking about this one person, blah, 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 blah. And then he sent me a message saying, we're talking about the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you can't make this up. Like, I don't know. And no one would believe me. So I just,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
That's so amazing. I love that. I do subscribe to it, but I think it's a lot more convoluted than what we can actually
I agree. I think
portray.
there's so much more to it. And
Mhm.
it's almost hard to put language.
Yeah.
I think it's just so expansive. And there's
Mhm.
probably so much more and so many more layers.
Yeah. I also think it's like watching another timeline. It's like watching another version of you playing out in real time, like a
Yes.
past life version, going, oh, that's me over there experiencing this. And then it
Yes.
brings you more to that unity consciousness.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what's at least helped me, and because we're in separation. So did he have
Oh,
a Kundalini experience?
yes. Oh, and I don't know what's too much information on here. And
There's no too much information.
okay, so one of the craziest things in the beginning, and what Mel would call the bubble love,
Hmm.
right? But for me, it was just like this blissed out, drugged out state. Um, was okay. I hope this isn't too TMI, but I'm just gonna say it. And if you
Just
need to
say
edit, edit. But what happened was with the Kundalini in the blissed out state, like I found that I needed to masturbate all the time to release energy. And I was like in this, if I didn't, I felt like I could not like go do normal things, like pick up my kids from preschool. And I was like, this is when I thought I needed to be institutionalized. But I was pleasuring myself. And while I'm pleasuring myself, like I hear my phone go off. And I'm like, that's weird. So I stop and I look at my phone, and my twin flame said, are you masturbating right now? And I was like, is there a camera in here? Like, how would he even know that? He's like, I have a heart on. And I'm like, so yes, in terms of Kundalini, and that might be an overshare, but it was like that connected, you know. And he was going through crazy Kundalini awakening at the same time, but he could feel when I would get off, and I could feel when he would get off, and not even just in the physical form, but also when our ethereal bodies were merging. I could feel when we were merging in the cosmos, like not just in physical third dimensional reality. But I don't know if that's TMI, but
it's not TMI because I think
that
that's
really did
really,
happen.
it's a real big part of it because you start merging and you start not even knowing where he ends and you begin.
Yeah,
And
it's so
I
crazy.
was laying in bed one night and he was with somebody else and I saw this woman above me and I was like, what is happening? I was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I felt the energetic walls just go up and I was like, oh, he knew I slipped in too. So
Yeah, yes,
that's
it's so
wild.
real.
It's so
And I've
real.
had other experiences like that too in the beginning, where when he was not, when he wasn't in alignment with truth,
Hmm.
it was almost like remote viewing,
Yeah,
like what we would call remote viewing. I
100%.
would, I would see everything. And then
Hmm.
and it freaked him out, because then I would say, hey, did X, Y, and Z happen? Because I saw it. And
Yep.
he's like, I'm terrified of you. And I'm like, it's not me. It's just happening, right? It's just
One,
happening, but it's the same thing.
yeah.
You can see when they're with someone else. You can see when they're not aligned, or they're like, there's something that isn't fully connected to truth.
Hmm. 100%. So how did you just tell him you were twin flames? How did he take that idea?
No. So how did we figure it out? So one day I remember I was sitting in my car, and I'm having like a nervous breakdown. I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
I'm married.
Yeah.
I'm in this house. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? And I remember I was sitting in the parking lot in my car, and I'm like trying to eat a taco, but I can't eat. And, and I, I remember sending a text to him saying, do you feel like magnetically drawn to me in some way? And he's like, yes. I'm like, where it feels like something is pulling us together. And he said, yes. And so then I was like, okay. I'm like, I have a feeling this is so much bigger than you and me. And I need to figure this out. I'm such, he's like the artist, Cancer, like, and I'm a Libra, but I have a lot of Earth and I have a little Virgo. And I'm like, I need to figure this out. And so that night is when I started doing a lot of research and I started coming across, stuff. And then I would send it. And I was like, does this resonate with you? Does this resonate? Do you think this is what's happening? He's like, yes. And we were like freaking out and our heads were exploding and we started like reading all about it. And then we got into, there's this book, I'm looking back there because that's where my books are, called Sexual Secrets. Have you heard of it? It's like an ancient book on Tantra. And then I started reading that and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's right there. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like, and it all just started going boom, boom. It was like everything clicking. And then I would keep a journal and he would keep a journal of all our shared dreams. We had shared dreams and then we'd wake up and do notes and then exchange them. And we have an entire journal of like that bubble love phase. And then all hell broke loose. I mean, after the burst and the whole, you had to deal with your life and all the things, but in that phase, like we had taken notes and we still have them, the notes.
What a gift.
Mm-hmm.
What a gift. The shared dreams are that's how I figured this out was I started with dreams and visions. Did you have ever dreams and visions before you met him or was it just completely out of the blue?
No. So what's interesting is my whole life, I've been incredibly intuitive and people would call me psychic, but I was like, whatever. But I would, oftentimes it's almost like a remembering or the merging of timelines or like where I would be in class and I would be looking at auras in trees and I would figure out how to go from a tree to something else. And all these crazy things since I was a little girl. And I also, in addition to that, had massive panic attacks because I didn't realize I was channeling and like all the stuff was coming in that I was allowing because I didn't understand, right? And then my whole life, I've had this like deep knowing that there was something so cosmic out there when it came to love. But then as I got older and I was just going through the motions of my life, I'm like, I think maybe that was just a fantasy of mine and it wasn't real. And then I worked with hospice patients who were dying for a long time. And in that process, I had really crazy energetic things happen. But then right before I met him, I was in this like deep process of meditation, like almost every day. And in these meditations, I could access this oneness, this feeling of everything being one, but not just as a concept, but as an actual, I could plug into the frequency in a way I never had prior, I would say, or prior, I didn't have such a deep understanding of it. And I was meditating all the time. It's so funny because I was married to an engineer and he's like super practical, super linear. So I'd be like living in my headphones with these like crazy like brain waves and meditations I would be like traveling and doing all these things. And like, it was almost like a secret. I'm telling you, I was like closeted because my life was so different than what my spirit was leading me to. And in that time, I had a lot of dreams and connections and I would say it was almost like my spirit maybe even making love to my own spirit, if that makes sense. And like feeling that in my astral. And that kept happening a lot right before I met him. And then the night I met him, I had a really intense migraine. And my third eye, man. So I had a really intense ocular migraine and I almost didn't go because it hurt so bad. But Prince is like, I was like, I have to go. I'm like, I have this whole outfit. I got to go. And of course, my husband at the time's like, I'm not doing that. And so I was like, I gotta go. Like I gotta just power through this ocular migraine. But it was almost like everything was preparing me, and I didn't realize it at the time. You know,
Mhm.
I just
Mhm.
kind of wrote things off, and I even physically changed. My hair color changed. It was a lot darker when I met him. It was almost black, and as we merged energy, my hair got lighter. It was so weird, and like my physical my face started to shift a little bit, and like everything was starting to change. It was wild. It felt like a sci-fi movie.
It really does feel like a sci-fi movie. It's
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, like the synchronicities of twins with twins. Like you do recognize other twins, and you do like my kids were 2.5 and 5, and I had the
Oh,
house, I had the husband, I
oh
had
my God, we have
everything.
the same story. Yes.
Totally. When you're saying that, I was like, whoa. And then you're like, what do I do with all this?
What
And I
do
got a
I
small
do?
little apartment that was just
Yeah.
crappy and weird.
Same. No yard. I'm like, it's okay. We're gonna
Yeah,
make this work. Not a proper
totally.
bedroom for the kids.
Yeah, for sure. That's so wild. How did you guys come in union? Like, are you guys married? Are you together?
Yes. So
How does,
we're not married, but we are definitely together.
wow.
But it took, my twin always makes this joke. He's like, you're going to break up with me until you're 90. Like at every 4 months, you're going to be like, I'm not sure. And then but you're going to be on your deathbed being like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's me in the connection. If I'm being fully transparent and authentic with you, like I sometimes it's just so hard, like the challenges and the obstacles, and just
Mm-hmm.
managing the energy that can come through and managing the triggers. There's a lot
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that we trigger in one another that are it's pretty intense. It's not your average. I wouldn't, this isn't like a walk in the park, like, oh, we're blissed out. No, like it's work,
Yeah.
and it's work in terms of energy. It's like a constant, I feel like sometimes even when we merge, there's these purging sessions that follow, right? There's this like flow of energy. And
Yeah.
so, yes, we are together. And the joke is, I will be breaking up with him until I'm 90.
I love that. Yeah, you do feel like the masculine polarity for sure that like
But
which
there's
is
also
cool.
this deep knowing that this is such a gift, and it's like a sacred, it's like the holy grail of
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
And I I know that it's impossible, and I know people will argue with me. I just don't think this opportunity would ever present again in the same way. Yes, and maybe in different forms for sure, but it's such an opportunity to go so deep and to really kind of, I think, be in union with something so much bigger than I can even imagine. And so there is that part, like every time I'm like ready to step off, I'm like, this ride is so exhausting. Like, don't make me do it anymore. This is so hard. I don't want to do this anymore. you know,
Mm-hmm.
every time I
Yeah.
get like that, every time then there's this like, it's like almost like this wave of like, you know, challenges are the greatest gifts, and what would happen if you just meet the resistance and just stay there for a second instead of bail,
I
you
love
know?
that.
But it's such a practice for me, because sometimes I'm just like, I need to get out of this. How can I get out of this? How can I get out of this? Do I have to do this? But it would be such a missed opportunity too. So I feel that deeply. There's like a voice back there. It's like, yes, you have free will. However, you know,
Well, it's just interesting navigating the ego and the spirit and
ah,
that conditioning that's so strong, and you just want
ah,
out of the journey. I think that's part of the
yes.
journey of wanting off the ride as
Oh
fast as
my
you can
gosh.
because the triggers are so deep and it is
They're
so
so deep.
intense, and it's not
Yes.
really, this world isn't conducive to hold that kind of
Yes.
connection or love.
Yes.
So that makes it really challenging as well.
It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah. Wow. That's really neat though. I love that you guys work it out and make it work. Do you think he's a star seed is why he was more awake and more aware?
Absolutely. He's
Yeah.
so cosmic. Yes.
Yeah. He
He's
feels very
so much,
cosmic.
he's more awake than I am. He is teaching me on so many levels. He has actually taken my he has helped me kind of dimension hop.
Wow. That is amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that your souls chose this journey for this space and time?
To help the ascension of the planet right now. And to bring in, I think, a different template for what relationships could look like. Because it's not even like, it's almost just, the word relationship doesn't even feel right. You know, it's a connection. It's like it's something different. It has a different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we came together to do that and to really heal crazy ancestral stuff. I mean, the amount of ancestral trauma that is in both our lineage, given, both mothers immigrants and all the crazy stuff that has gone down within the family system. The synchronicities are insane, and mental illness too within the family, right? And addiction.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I feel like we came together to kind of burn all that off. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, but would I, it's a good thing I was super unaware and asleep when it all happened, because I'm not like, I'm glad I didn't know, because it's no joke. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say, I don't want to glorify it, because um, it's a really intense
Yeah. It's not for the
journey.
faint of heart at
No,
all.
no, 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 no. I've never felt
Hmm.
pain or agony or suffering, and I've been through some hard stuff in my life,
Hmm.
childbirth, really intense trauma as a child, so many things, and this nothing matches this level.
Yeah. Nothing
So it's
matches. And the pain
mm-mm.
of the separation and
Oh,
all the some scars that come up while the
oh
Kundalini is
my
rising
gosh.
and the timelines and lifetimes of
Oh
grief
my
and
gosh.
purging. It's not for the faint of heart. Like you
And
think you're
also
going
having
mad, right?
yeah, I
Hmm.
went to my parents. I said, I think you guys need to check me in. I said that to them. I was freaking out. And also I remember, and this still happens time to time, where it's almost like I have to re-experience certain deaths.
Hmm.
This sounds so crazy, but I will feel it's almost like I can physically feel what it is to be burned alive or something. Like
Hmm.
I've had that happen a couple of times, and I've had to like go home and like lay in my bed and just like I'll hold my copper, and I'm just like, please somebody make this move quickly. Like I am just, and I'm like, what is that about? And then I meditated on it because I wanted to ask my spirit what that was about. And it's that, you know, having to, in order to bring everything into present time, you have to honor the things that maybe you haven't in the past, whether it's this
Hmm.
lifetime, past, and this was a past life that came through. But can't explain that to people. You can't be like, oh, I'm off of work today. No one come into my room because I feel like my entire body's on fire. What? Crazy? Someone get her some meds.
Totally, but I think that's what this is opening up to our multidimensional selves that
Yes.
all these timelines are happening
Oh
concurrently.
my
And
gosh.
do you
Yes.
two have shared past life memories? Are there any memories
Yes.
you guys share?
Yes. So there's a couple. Um, so when we were in that bubble love, whatever that the blissed out state, we would have these shared dreams, and one of them was a shared past life, and we both had it come through, where we were actually we were both men, and we came from different cultures, but we were madly in love. And yes, and we had the whole experience of what we look like and what it was like to be in that body and look at each other in those bodies. And it all happened within the astral. And it was so crazy because we shared that exact moment.
So cool.
It was really cool. So we had that one. We remember that one really well. And then there was like an ancient Egypt shared life where it was almost like I I believe, and I don't want to project, but what came through was I was I was in a female form in that lifetime, in some kind of like royal kind of blood, and he was in a male body, and he was like a servant or like some kind of like assisting the family, and we had this like thing. Yeah, that came through too during that time, during that first 2 months. Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. So
Yeah.
amazing. I love
Wild.
that. Isn't it wild? Because that's when you start to realize, like, oh, these past lives are real. If we're
They're
both remembering these,
so real.
they're so real.
They're so real, and they make so much sense.
Mm-hmm. And they usually have something to do with this lifetime, don't you find? Like the
Yes.
ones we remember, and it's like, oh, we're kind of
Still
completing whatever karma we were doing with this.
integrating,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to complete it or heal.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you guys have shared family lineage, because that's the
Oh
same
my
with my
gosh.
twin and I, like exact same upbringing, like exact. It's really wild that, but and the idea of the twin flame, like you are the same soul song, the same signature frequency, but then you react to life experience in equal and opposite ways. And that's what I've found. Have you found that as well?
Yes. Yes. Like, are you talking about like your greatest strengths or like his greatest weakness,
Mm-hmm.
and his greatest weakness or your greatest strength type of thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
laugh because it's so, yes. That's a hard yes.
Yeah.
We literally hold what the other doesn't quite hold yet.
Wow. Wow. How do you guys find communication? Are you able to work through your triggers and
Sorry.
work through?
We're trying so hard. We even
Yeah.
like we write this list when we're not triggered, of like going back to basics in those states of consciousness, because it's so quick to just get like right into it.
Yeah.
I have never felt rage or my emotions the way I have in this connection or with the triggers that
Hmm.
happen between us. And in terms of communication, I notice that if I don't stay conscious, or if he doesn't, it can go south so fast, and the energy is so intense. Like, I feel like I could fly to space with the amount of like, I'm just like vibrating so intensely. So we do have to really practice. It's so hard, and we haven't mastered it all the time. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, but there are moments where we have. But in those moments, it's like really important we take space and like step away and back out, and back out, and just give yourself a minute to let the energy move first, slow to the ground,
Hmm.
before you say or do anything. Because it's like the infinity symbol, right? It's like
Hmm.
you start to, the same way you can be blissed out is the same way you can create hell for each other. And so you're just like feeling, and so, but communication can be really difficult because of our triggers, and because of, again, our different strengths and our different weaknesses. And for us, we need to step away and stay really conscious in order for us not to amplify really intense emotion.
Yeah.
I've never felt intense emotion this way. I mean, I've always been deeply sensitive, but like where I'm like, I might die.
Oh, for
This is
sure.
death. I'm dying right now. Yeah.
For sure. It feels like death a lot of times. And it
Yes.
is fun.
Yes.
The intense emotion that can come. Like, I have friends like, you never get mad at anyone, and you get so mad at him. And I'm like,
Oh
I
my gosh, you see red. You could be like, ah,
know.
oh my
It's
gosh.
like
It's
I
like,
wanted to pick up my shoe and just huck it at him before,
yes. It's like righteous rage. It's so
It's
intense.
so intense. It's amazing. Do you find that with the energy so intense between the two of you that you trigger other people? Or,
Yeah, sometimes I feel like we're agents of chaos in life, and that we're not trying to be. We're not trying to be, but we like, you know, we come in and like things just blow up, and
hmm,
it looks like disorder, but there is an order in all of it.
yeah.
And then it's hard for me. So third dimensional way of being too. Like the difference between us is I am like, I need peace, I need order, everything has, and it's like in this journey, it's like, no, you don't get to choose that. Wild chaos magic is here, and everything is exploding, and you have to be cool with that. And for me, that's like the hardest. He's great. He thrives in that energy. But for me, I'm like, where's the stage? Ground, everybody, like lights off. Like, I don't want that energy. It's like I resist that energy so much. But yes, when we come together and we got in a car accident together, like we just like crazy stuff goes down with the energy. We mess with so many things, and sometimes I'm like, this is so too chaotic. This is not grounding. This is not grounding. I don't feel grounded. And yes, we do trigger other people too, because they're like, damn, you guys, like, chill out. We're like,
well, I've just found, like, in rooms, the energy is so kinetic that either people want what we have, or they try to keep us apart because they're triggered with that energy. Have you had forces come up against you guys to keep you guys apart, or
yes,
has it? Yeah,
absolutely. One of those forces would be my mother, which is super interesting. And also his mom at some point, because of the age, but now I'm really close with his family. However, in the beginning, it was really hard for everyone. And when we're in a room, either everybody comes up to us and wants to hang out, and you almost feel like you're being pulled on a little. And I'm like constantly trying to be like, here, I'm in my bubble. And or people are judging the connection and really threatened by the connection. Or for example, my twin is like super artistic, like long, like, people are like, is he male, is he female, like what's happening, like who is it they them, like like they need to understand. And it really stresses people out. And some people, there are people in our lives that really embrace and love and like understand, and it's like so good. And then there also are people who we really challenge.
Yeah. I also find this is a mission oriented path. Are you feeling with the music that's your mission together of what you're doing, or is it even more deeper, maybe healing the bloodlines?
I think there's a couple layers. I think that we are healing the bloodlines, but I do think that we have come together to work in some way. And I do think that music is one of those portals. It's really funny. So this is my office where I do therapy and energy healing. His music studio is right next door. We rent the space, so we share it. So, and he's here when I'm not, and I'm here when he's not, because we could never, but it's almost like the integration of the two energies are happening side by side, but it's actually what's happening energetically too. So yeah, for sure.
I find music is a big component. Like the people I know really deeply, all their twins are musicians, which is really, including my own, which is really interesting. So amazing. So do you have any advice for anyone new on this path, or just waking up to the twin flame idea that they've collided with this energy? What you wish you would have known in the beginning that you know now?
I wish I knew just how important it is to meet your fear and allow space for it versus running and resisting and amplifying that energy. Because really what fear is doing is it's creating more room for your courage. And so if you can just allow for that to be there, and I would leave out my seventh chakra a lot when I was in states of panic, and that created more chaos and brought in more energy that can really take you away from unifying with what's happening. And I wish that I understood that, like how to manage my crown chakra and how to stay with the fear and just allow it to be there with a lot of love and curiosity, versus taking actions in that state of consciousness.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, I wish that someone taught me that, because in the beginning, I don't think there would have been so much chaos had I understood how to do that. And the other thing I wish I knew is, um, at the time, there's moments in this journey where you can feel as if it is some kind of curse or like karmic. I don't know. You're just like, oh my gosh, and I wish I understood in some of those moments. It's similar to the fear that it really is an opportunity for evolution, and it's an opportunity to amplify and unify humanity and help with the vibration. But you have to harness it within yourself, and you have to be able to meet yourself there in order to stay in that frequency. But had I known that, and had I had the tools to kind of like learn how to manage my energy and not blow out toasters and cars and tires and all that stuff, I think that it would have been really helpful. And I think it would have brought us into union without all the stuff that we had to go through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If people want to find your work, do you have a website or social media?
Yeah. So yeah, isabelmize.com. Yeah, I have both, and I can
Okay.
send it to you guys too. But
Amazing. We'll put it on the
isabelmize.com, and
link.
then Isabel Mize AAA on Instagram. Yeah,
That's so
it's all
gorgeous.
there.
I love the way you put all of this, and it's
Yeah.
going to make so much more sense to people. It was very poetic and beautiful. And so,
Oh,
thank you so much.
oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Oh
I
my
feel like I'm
gosh.
coming out of the closet. I'm
I
finally,
am
in the last year, I'm like, yes, this is what's happening.
I think it's time. I think it's time for all of us to just come out of the closet
Yes,
and tell our stories unabashedly,
yes,
unashamedly, so other people understand. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. Oh
Well,
my
thanks for
gosh.
doing what you're doing for the planet too, and for your
Thank you.
service.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Beyond the Veil. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can grow our channel. If you have a story you would like to share, please email nandipresents@gmail.com. If you're interested in classes or personal sessions, please visit nandi.co, Nandi.co, and have a magical day.